Good evening, friends, and welcome to night 45 of Fun with Cheese. Who would have thought 44 nights ago we'd be sitting here at the venison intake area and sitting here talking about night 45 of cheese. At that time it was kind of cold outside too, but I would have been wearing a hat. Speaking of hats, tonight's hat actually has a little bit of history that goes back to where we're standing right here. You see inside the Venison Emporium there in the bunker, years ago this property was owned by Dr. Richard Schulte, and he was one of the pioneers in the non-surgical form of embryo transfer. This is the hat from his farm that was just up the road, and here in an office right 20 feet from here was the office where he did his vet work and perfected the craft, and did that right inside here because there was a cattle alley, the craft of embryo transfer. Now, for those of my non-farm viewers here, I'm going to explain this a little bit. Embryo transfer is a process of where we use hormonal therapy on the cow and get her to superovulate. And by getting her to superovulate, she creates many viable eggs on her ovaries, and then she ovulates. We then inseminate artificially, and those eggs that are then fertilized are collected by the use of a saline catheter that they pass through the cervix, and a bulbal catheter, and they fill that uterus with saline and then collect those eggs, those fertilized eggs, in a petri dish, and then those are frozen, and you can pass that cow's genetics with whatever bull you mate her with to an entire herd of cattle if you wish. Now, if you think that sounds a little weird, you probably have heard people who've had hormonal treatment for getting pregnant. In the human world, everything starts with the animals, and coming up with those techniques and perfecting those techniques is how we are able to help people who aren't necessarily able to have children or work in those aspects to allow them to be and we're standing in a site where that was perfected. So shirt tonight, every day I'm rustling. Greenhouse workers out there, you know, we had a great sale today at our greenhouse. Sold just succulents, and saw a lot of really cool pictures of kids putting succulents in different receptacles, whatever they had sitting around. I've even seen them put in an old wheelbarrow. It's really neat. But my shirt says every day I'm rustling. I try and come up with a corny thing every week or every year for our greenhouse sale. Speaking of corny, our cheese tonight is kind of interesting. Many have asked if we can do a cheese with reindeer, if we can do a cheese with llama, we can choose a yak, camel, you name it. There are milking parlors in Saudi Arabia where they milk just camels. The milk tonight is from its original finished nature, made of reindeer's milk, and it's called Justo. Justo is a mainstay on a griddle or served as an appetizer. Now, my friend's back here in the Cabela's 36-inch pellet grill, and that's where it's best done, because Justo is a cheese that will not melt. It has a finished bake on it. The sugar on that cheese caramelizes and as it turns brown, that's what happens in your pizza. That sugar turns brown as it caramelizes, just on your marshmallow and everything else. But this is how Justo is made. It's baked before it's put into storage. Now, Justo is necessarily that new to Wisconsin, or not necessarily that much of a staple here in Wisconsin. 2002, Mr. Jim Path, who was a specialty cheese coordinator for the CDR, we talked about them before down in Madison, first came across Justo in a few scattered areas in far northern Wisconsin. So he talked to these people, went to a small little place, much like this, where they made Justo, and it was an older couple, and they tied him up Arctic Circle in Finland. Went there, learned how to make it, came back to the CDR, sat down with 28 other cheesemakers and said, this is how you're going to make Justo Leipä. So now there's about 6 different Justo Leipä production people here in Wisconsin. Number 1, they make it at Babcock Hall. That's at UW-Madison. That's the place that's closed down now because nobody can be on campus. Carr Valley, which is in Fenimore, they make a Justo Leipä with many different flavors, including garlic, chipotle, and jalapeno. Pasture's Pride in Cashton makes a Justo. There is Bass Lake in northern Wisconsin, up in Somerset. I have some friends up there in the factory. He is the only certified cheesemaker in Justo Leipä. His name is Scott Erickson. And then the newest one is in Noble View Creamery in Union. Now, the one I'm bringing out right now, that must be some really good cheese if it will grill in plastic. But this is, and it's made by Brunco Cheese in Darlington, Wisconsin. This is an entry into the World Cheese Championships. The sticker was there, but I removed it. But you can see that baked material right there. And this is how it is. So you can bake this. It's called bread cheese. And what they end up doing with it then, because it is bread cheese, you serve it for breakfast. And people dip it in milk, they put honey on it, they put maple syrup on it. You gotta serve it warm. It's like a cheese curd, but it's real squeaky in nature and it's really super good. So now Finland, remember we talked about the Russians and their story yesterday with the kefir. Here's a story with Justo Leipä. So the story goes that Justo Leipä about residents of Finland, mothers with unmarried daughters, would make a cup of coffee with their homemade Justo Leipä recipe. And then, if the man who sat down, possibly a suitor that she had invited over, would compliment her on the mother's cheese, he got the option to marry the daughter. That's a pretty good cheese if you can use that to marry the daughter. Now, I don't think that here in Wisconsin right now we do that, but this stuff will get you onto private property for hunting purposes if you bring the right. It will ease pains of conflict with the right kind of cheese. It will, I don't know, it's a festive thing, cheese is. So here, Justo Leipä in Finland would get you married. So people in here in Wisconsin serve with greens, eggplant sandwiches, or kebabs if you're in Madison, but if you're like me here in central Wisconsin, I'm going to warm it on the grill, put some smoke on it, slice it into cubes, and just eat it as a squeaky cheese curd because the stuff won't melt no matter how hot you get it. Now don't go out there and burn it to 500 degrees on your Cabela's 36-inch grill. I don't have a Rectech, I don't have a Traeger, I don't have a Green Mountain. I just got this guy, so don't dog me on it. But this stuff here, you warm it up at 250, put it on a plate. It's going to be good. Justo Leipä, Finnish cheese. If you compliment the maker's mother, you might get married. And this guy right here is Milk Step into Immortality. Be good. We'll see you at 46 tomorrow. Take care.